one of the best things about being an entrepreneur is being able to be on the go and thinking on your feet. Unfortunately, I have very bad memory for people's faces and people's things. So a lot of the connections we made, I made from organizations like the US PACs. So for example, our biggest customer, I wanted them, we've been servicing them for 2 to 3 years. I've never had any success. This is the same story you hear over and over again for small businesses. So I Googled the person that was going to make the decision, found their picture, found out where they were going. Oops, by accident, happened to sit next to them during a dinner function, and the rest was history. So part of it is just being, I guess, precarious enough to understand to get closer to the information. As a small firm, you have to compete, especially in what we do. Staffing and is so competitive. You really have to set yourself apart and approach it in a way that's unique. And finding those nuances that makes each client special and being able to provide it, I think, is what truly will set you apart. Well, like most companies, the biggest challenge is funding, financial backing. You start off as an entrepreneur and you think your biggest challenge is, where do I get my customer? How do I book a business? What most entrepreneurs or small businesses don't understand is, when you get them, then what? Then what's going to happen? How are you going to pay these people? How are you going to maintain your business? So the biggest challenge as a small company was making sure that you were prepared for that growth and that you can compete with the big boys. I started off just like any other bright-eyed, bushy-tailed person, starting a business, and I went to all the big banks. We went to the Bank of Americas of the world and the Wells Fargos of the world. And there's nothing wrong with them. They're great organizations, but they're mandated so tightly by federal regulations that a lot of times small businesses, you're too small to really make an impact or meet the requirements that they need for the different things that they need for financials. So I guess that's my first lesson I would like to share, is learn about your company and what you can do, and start, when you prepare your market plan, double it up and prepare your financial capabilities. Make the connections with the community banks. Community banks are still small enough that they can understand your industry. I mean, I could go to lunch with several community banks in my industry and share with them, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we need funding, so that they get the other side of the story. Because as a small business, a lot of times, the B of A's of the world are not going to grant you that money unless you don't need it. And if so, what's the point? So you got to love what you do, because the money comes and goes. We started the company by HELOCs, putting HELOCs on our homes and maxing out every single credit card. So I learned you could start a credit card one day, and it's going to take 7 days before the cycle comes, and you can cash advance that for payroll for the next week. I think we all started that way. And that's not very good for stress to be able to do that. So having that banking relationship is really important, so that you alleviate that component. I actually have 2 partners, so there's 3 of us. So it makes a good team, and we balance each other really well. So you can't do it alone. I think that's one of the toughest things, is finding people that you can work with on a personal level and a business level, keep the respect through the ups and downs and tribulations, and support one another and find strength from one another. So it's very important. I talk to a lot of small businesses, and most don't succeed. And the ones that succeed, I think the one thing that they approach you for is that they have a process and a procedure in place that you can grow and you can repeat the success. I mean, it's one thing to be lucky and say, I got this contract. Or it's one thing to say, I know someone and I got this contract. It's another to be able to repeat it over and over again and to grow. So again, that's one of the differentiators of SearchPros. I came from 20 years of one of the largest global organizations in the world. We learned what was right. We learned what services worked and what doesn't work. And so to be able to incorporate that, we don't do anything at SearchPros that's not based on policies and procedures and proven methodologies. So that when we had to do it again, we had a way to do it, that I could let control go. And I could say, okay, I'm gonna have to leave Texas because I gotta go home because it's Halloween and I gotta go trick-or-treating with my kids. So you know what to do. If it falls back, you have this information, and if not, I'm available via phone. So the ability to do that. Continuing education is so important in everything that we do, whatever your industry, and technology changes so quickly. And if you're behind the curve in any way, you can be left behind and you don't even know what happened to you. So learn not only from book smarts. I mean, I just recently got my MBA a year ago, so I still keep going. I put that in between and everything else, because everything changes. And surround yourself with subject matter experts. go to networking mixers like the US PAC conference, where people that are doing the same thing that you're doing and coming across the same problems, somebody's come across what you need to come across and already solved it. So don't reinvent the wheel. Learn from other people. Learn for yourself. There's great resources for us in technology, and there's a lot of groups in LinkedIn and Twitter that you can teach yourself pretty much how to do anything if you have the right resources. So continue to learn. A differentiator for SearchPros was that we approached everything from opening an office to a new location to a statement of work proposal based on what the customer needed and tailored it to that. And it's very difficult if you're a very large organization to tailor every single one. But we have still the capacity and the autonomy to do that work. There is a ground foundation. There are certain things that have to remain constant. But within the delivery, there are different components depending on what is important to the customer. You know, a lot of companies talk about return on investments. What we do is return on relationships in addition to return on investments. So we take that relationship, we add to it. We take subject matter experts, we incorporate it into it to ensure that we deliver well and above their expectations. Well, they call me a mini stalker. My iPhone is my best friend. I think it's about preparation. Last year, we won the National Minority Council Supplier of the Year Award for our support for Lockheed Martin. And as I was going up on stage receiving the award for the Supplier of the Year, Dr. Saba, the procurement officer for Kaiser, was coming down being awarded as a corporate sponsor of the year. And I just went up to her and said, "You're the winner for giving out the most business to diverse companies, and we are the #1 diverse companies. Why do we not have business with you?" And from that, she took me onto her group. I managed to get the contract, and I think we have 40, 50 people there right now. The heart and soul of SearchPros is the people. And anything that impacts the core employees of SearchPros is always a tough decision. You know, when the economic upturns and downturns, I'll tell you a story. 4 years ago, our largest customer was IndyMac Bank. Okay, we had 200-300 people there.
Are they still
with
around?
Payroll. And then one day, they closed their doors and said, "Went out of business," with a big sign. You know, so it was a really tough decision on what to do. I mean, you fold the company, how do you recover from that? You're never going to get the money back. But at the core of every decision, when I try to make the right one, I always think about, this is about SearchPros. The delivery, the product, the service is only delivered because of the people that work for us. So it's important that we take care of them first. Everything else will come after.